Hello and welcome to the fourth town hall meeting here at the Knife Junkie channel. Today we have a very, very special show. Jock from across the shock, it's a pleasure to have you here, sir. Today we have a very special show. We have three amazing knife makers, knife designers, stalwarts of the knife community. One legend, one up-and-comer, and one, well, like I said, stalwart of the knife design world. Hey, Edwin, how's it going, sir? We were just talking about you before we started rolling. Kolbs, good to have you here. So welcome again to the town hall. This is one of my favorite things we do here at the channel. It's a chance to get your favorite knife makers on screen and a chance to talk to them. And who do we have up first? No one but the legendary Ernest Emerson. Ernest, it's a pleasure having you here on the Knife Junkie Town Hall. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I've got some interesting things to show you today that most people, some of them have never seen the light of day, so to speak. So,
hey, well, it's my honor to be the conduit to get this out to people. Before we get rolling, I just want to say I love your background. You know, I've seen your podcast, and I've seen the videos heard your podcast, seen the videos you put out on your channel when you're announcing a new knife. I love your office. It seems like it's full of stories. So I just wanted to tip my hat to that, especially that axe over your shoulder there.
Oh, well, that axe, yeah, that's a 1,000-year-old Viking battle axe. And as we were chatting a little bit ago, I have a collection that goes all the way back to actual Neanderthal tools and all of the history all the way up through Roman and Greek and everything else. So someday maybe we can take time to chat and I can show you all of that cool stuff because it's fascinating.
That would be awesome. If viewers are familiar with the new deep cut, maybe we do a deep cut on Ernest Emerson's ancient weapons. That would be a whole lot of fun. Well, Ernest, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is your awesome new knife. You've had a couple of new ones come out recently. The Bull Shark, which we've featured on this show. And Jock loves that axe. Jock's a full-on Viking living over there in Scotland. Yeah, pull it down, man.
I got it wired in because I don't want it falling down and hit me on the head. We have earthquakes.
Yeah, I was going to say in California, that's probably a wise choice. Jock says, I picked up my first Emerson literally yesterday, a mini sheepdog, which, by the way, is beautiful. I think it looks better than the regular sheepdog, personally, but that's just, can't praise it enough. Look forward to my mini sax. Yeah.
We got a lot of stuff coming up. Go ahead.
So what I was going to toss to was we've seen the Bull Shark, and now, like this week, you drop the Cqc6 and I don't know if it's because I'm the youngest child or what it is, but I'm always the last to know everything. And I found this out before I had a chance to grab one. So let's talk about the 17.
Well, unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately for us, unfortunately for the viewers, we sold every single Cqc6. I do not have one. I don't even have one for myself. They literally lasted several hours and were gone. And that was an entire run of knives. So I don't know what it is sometimes about a particular design that catches on or catches fire. But that one certainly has. In fact, it's funny because I've had a couple of people call me with stories about the Cqc6, and it just started. So I'm like, wow, it's already gaining a kind of a history of its own. But anyway, it's a knife that I designed for a pocket carry for an EDC. It's not a quote unquote combat knife or even a tactical knife,
right?
Because it's a smaller version. It has what people have kind of described to me as a straight razor look to it.
Yeah.
And what I did in the design was I wanted it to be kind of a symmetrical looking knife when it was open. So I clipped the front end and I clipped the handle also. And it just, for some reason, it just came out very comfortable in the hand. It's the right size for a pocket, and holy smokes, it blew up our sales. So thank you all.
we have an owner, a proud owner of that, waiting in the green room to come on and show off the knife. But before we do, I just want to say, to further editorialize this shape, I think, when I got the saw the sax, I was blown away. It's a natural. I mean, we all know your affinity for clip points and bowies, and you've done many iterations of that. Each one beautiful, more beautiful than the last. You're welcome. But when this came out, knowing your history and your love of ancient weapons, it just seemed like a natural fit. And seeing as people really love the not just the tacticality of that shape, the straight edge, but also the pure utility of it, I was not surprised to see a straight razory shaped knife just take off.
Well, it's funny. I'm going to tell you a quick story, and I hope I don't offend anyone by saying this, because you have to take everything in context. My friend called me and he said, "Ernie, I grew up in Staten Island. In Staten Island, there were the Italians and there were the Puerto Ricans and a few of us Jewish people." And he said, "My mom would never," he said, "think about it. All the Puerto Ricans and all the Italians carried straight razors." And he said, "My mom, of course, wouldn't let me have any kind of knife or anything like that." And he said, "Ernie, I saw that knife." He said, I had to have one. I had to have one, because he said, now this might offend some people, but take it in context. This is a true story. He said, when I saw that knife, I was 13 years old and I was staring down 6 Italian guys with straight razors.
I love it.
And I didn't have one. But my best self-defense was I was very fleet of foot. And I said, I don't want to give his name, but I said, "Look, that's the best self-defense technique in the entire world."
Right. I think pretty much always. That's hilarious. I'm not offended, and I'm about as Italian as American as I can be, genetically. So, but that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, things like that, just evocative. Well, so we're not all guessing what the CQC17 is. Let's bring our good friend Edwin on, and he can show us all. Edwin, how you doing, sir?
Hey, good. Nice talking to you guys.
Hello,
so
Edwin.
Let me formally introduce you guys. Ernest Emerson. This is Edwin Callow.
Hi.
Ernest Emerson.
Hello, Edwin.
Let me tell you, he's not wrong. I'm Puerto Rican, and I do have. He's not wrong. You always have a straight razor.
It's true.
But yeah, this is the CQC17, right? The latest.
There it is.
That came out. Like you're saying, great size, very, very nice. I don't know if I can show that blade, but I love that curve right there that you guys did there. If I don't cut myself there, but very, very nice. Yeah. But yeah, it's a pleasure. FYI, I wanted to share a little bit of my story later when I can with Emerson knives.
Well, let's do it right now. Edwin, you're here.
All right. Okay, I'll do it. So and again, I was going to do this on the gathering. I was planning to go, but obviously it got canceled and all that. So I wanted to do this in person with Ernest. But yeah, basically back in 1999, okay, I was probably 21 or so. A family brother from Puerto Rico. I grew up in Puerto Rico. Now I'm in Texas. I've been in Texas for 20 years or so. I love it. But in there, back in 1999, a family friend, I used to work with him in a towing company, car crashes and all that will show up. And there was this huge hurricane that hit in 1999 called Marilyn or something like that. I don't remember. And let me tell you, when something like that happens, it's very common that the whole community goes out and try to help each other, okay? When a disaster like this happens, everybody goes out. One of the things that will go out is we'll get in his truck that he has a radio and all that, and we'll see if there are problems around, if there are problems happening. And Ernest, so I had a CQC7 with me. We'll go out and we go to this barrio, this hood place, my Spanglish, this hood place called Barrio Obrero. And when we show up there, it's all flooded, it's all brown water, flooded, people trying to get out, right, and all that.
Yeah.
So, and we noticed a car, and we saw a person in the car. And we are like, okay, let's go there and see, if we need to rescue someone, because it looks like there's someone there. So we drive as close as we can, but we needed to jump in. I tell my buddy, hey, call in the radio, the police, the rescue people. I'm going to go in and try to see who is in the car. When I show up there, it's incredible to see. I'm just a civilian, FYI, Ernest. I'm just a civilian. I show up there, and there's this old lady trying to turn on her car, and the car is flooded, halfway flooded, right? It's not happening, right? She's still trying to turn on the car. So that's pretty incredible to see, right? How some of these people sometimes just get in this shock mode. So I quickly learned that I cannot just open a door when the car is totally flooded. I try to open the door. It's not going to happen. At least she had her window almost all the way down. So I went there. I took out my knife. It was a Cqc6. I didn't know at that time a lot about Emerson knives or anything like that. I cut the seatbelt. I cut a little bit of her clothes and all that, by accident. But I cut the seatbelt. I cut that. I pulled her out. Now, it was pretty tiring to do. Pull her out. We go to the truck, and then obviously we waited for the right personnel to show up and take care of her. But then after that, and again, this is normal when this happened, you just keep going and keep helping people that needed to go from point B to point A, right? From flooded to. But one thing I will tell you is that since that day, okay, one thing, obviously that Cqc6 was beat to hell. It was a shop knife. The edge was okay, but it did the job. But one thing I remember when I was underwater, okay, trying to cut, that freaking G10 was just hook in the hand. It was just, glue in my hand, and I knew I would not fail when doing that cut because I could feel it with the adrenaline and all that. I could feel that it won't go away. So I really appreciate that you stay with G10 for the production stuff. Again, people love carbon fiber and all that. I love it too. It's okay. But I really appreciate it. And since 1999, since 2000, my primary knife, I'm a knife lover. I have a bunch of knives and all that, but my primary knife is usually, for the most part, a G10 Emerson because of that experience there. And again, thank you for all that. It was I wanted to share this in the gathering, but we can do it here in the town hall meeting. So
what's interesting is that I always think of Emersons in the tactical sense because they are definitely so capable in that way and are designed in that way. But Ernest, I think of a story you tell frequently too, and Edwin's story here just kind of bolsters that about how you were behind someone who got trapped on an escalator, and you were able to cut them free and just kind of walk off and
that's funny.
Yeah, tell that story.
Well, and first let me say to Edwin, thank you, Edwin, for here's what I'm going to say about you. You're a good guy. You are a good person. And to do that kind of running out into danger yourself, that speaks very highly of your character. So we can all appreciate people like you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the compliments on the knife too. So anyway, my wife and I were in the middle of traveling from show to show, and we hadn't been home for maybe 2 or 3 days, an entire month. And I got to the point where I wasn't carrying a knife because I was on the airplane all the time. And I got home and I said to my wife, I said, hey, honey, do you mind if I grab a knife off the shelf? We were going out to see a movie. And so she said, yeah, go ahead. So I went in there and grabbed a knife, and it was a little A100. And I put it in my pocket. We go to the mall and we get to the escalator. And sure enough, at the top, there was a crowd at the top of the escalator. No one on the escalator between us and the crowd. But we got on and we got up there, and pretty soon, about halfway up, we realized it was a commotion. So we basically ran up the escalator to get to the top to see what was going on. And sure enough, just like something you always think of when you're on an elevator, you look at your shoes and say, is my shoe untied? Because I don't want to get caught. Well, lo and behold, at the top of the elevator was a little 8 or 9 year old boy his tennis shoe. The laces were caught in the escalator, and he was going, "It's tight, it's tight, it's tight, it's tight," and it was getting more and more urgent every time he said it. And there was no one there. There was about 6 people, including the mall security guard. No one had a knife, and I just happened to be there at the right time. I reached in my pocket, pulled the knife out, and they were so tight that I just touched the laces, and they popped open. It popped through. I put the knife back in my pocket because everybody was, huddled down around the little boy, and I started to walk off, and I heard someone go, "Thank you, whoever you are." And my wife and I looked at each other and just kind of smiled. I felt like James Bond.
Who was that man with that magical tool? It just solved our problem.
But yeah, again, a knife is, just to go off on a tangent for a moment, if you don't mind. A knife really is, besides a sharp stick and probably a rock, man's oldest tool. And I believe no matter what our level of technology gets to be, the knife will always be a tool that man or woman will always have to have. And it's probably the most useful object I think that's ever been invented, probably because it's right up there with fire, because I don't think you could make fire unless you had a knife involved at some point either. So, it's there for emergencies, it's there for utilities, it's there for food preparation, it's there for self-defense. I just don't think it'll ever not be something that we need as a species, let's say that. So right. I'm glad to be part of that.
Yeah.
We have Jock saying, "Mr. Emerson, with myself living in the UK, I'm very interested in what I can carry legally. What are the chances of you making a 3-inch no locking knife with a wave?" And then a big laughy symbol.
Well, I've learned one thing: never to say never, because one way or the other, we usually get around to things. We have something here called Emerson time, which is a it breaks the laws of physics, I think.
Yeah.
For us, things take a long time sometime, but who knows? Maybe we will do something like that someday. I do have I don't know the specifics of the laws exactly, but are slip joints legal in the UK?
Yeah.
Sub 3-inch, I think, slip joints are legal. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, maybe I've got something. I'd have to go off camera for a second, but maybe I'll get a chance to show you something that we made a while back.
Well, that sounds like it's right up another alley of mine and also Edwin's, but fine slip joints. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, and I don't mean to be presumptuous, but they have. So, Ernest, are there any new designs you've got? No, I'm being coy. What are the new things you have on your table that are coming up that you could show us that you don't feel would be given away too much?
No, I actually have 2 knives that I'd just like to show in case some people haven't seen them. They're not new, but what I've got in front of me are, I'm a history guy. I've got historical Emerson knives in front of me that I think might be interesting to some people too. So let me show you what I've got that is kind of new, if you will.
Okay, sure.
And we'll take it from there. One of the newer models that we did was a knife called the Elvia. And that is a knife that was a design from a good friend of mine, a gentleman named Ed Calderon, who is a very interesting individual, which we could talk for several hours about Ed and his history. But we are just releasing our second run of the Elvia, along with an Elvia training knife.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And Ed has a bunch of specific things that he can do with that knife that almost seem like magic. But it's actually a design that, believe it or not, it was actually a kitchen type knife and can be used for everything from cutting fruit to dressing game and slicing things and all that, but it lends itself real well to a tactical / self-defense application at the same time. So the trainers and the next run of Alveas are coming right up. They should be out in a couple of weeks. So again, super popular knife. We could not make enough of them.
Every time I post a picture about the Alvea, people are like, "When are the next one coming?" They're like,
yeah. We're working as hard as we can. Believe me, I'm telling you,
let me say, as the guy who always misses the drop, go to the Emerson website and sign up and get a notification. That's how I got it, and that's probably the only realistic way of nailing one.
The other knife that I have that is newer, it's already been released, but it's the first Emerson in-house automatic. Now, when I say that, we've made some automatics and prototypes of automatics in the past, but this is the first one that we ever followed through with to turn into a knife that we're going to sell. And this knife has a well, I can measure it. I don't know exactly how long the blade is, but it's just under 2 inches long. So it's qualified as a legal automatic knife in the state of California. So we figured we'd start with that and go from there. So this knife now has several, I guess, iterations. We're going to do some with different blade styles in it, short ones, and then we're going to expand it into a larger version, more of a quote normal size knife in most people's opinion. And so we're going to have an automatic division of Emerson knives. And again, we'll just see, the people that buy the knives kind of determine where our boat heads, because if people are interested in those, we'll make them. I always make the joke about, I could be the best shoemaker in the world, but if I made a size 22 shoe, nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah, right.
So, I've got to make something that people want, and that's what we're trying to do.
Before you move on, let me interject a couple of things. There have been a lot of comments coming up. One of them was from our friend Super Steel Steve, who said, if it's absolutely not allowed to break, get an Emerson, which he's done some real torture tests on. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was a Roadhouse, and came out with flying colors. Also, our good friend Josh at Razor Edge Knife just put out, I'd love to see an Alvea with a wave. I too would love to see an Alvea with a wave. And I'm interested in the choice not to wave that very obviously tactical knife.
Well, again, because Ed was the nexus of that design, or the genesis of that design, I went with what he had described as the knife that he would want to have built. And we have a wave design on paper. In fact, we might even have a prototype or two floating around here, but oh, no. We're not making them yet.
Yeah. Well, I think it's assumed that everything in your shop that doesn't have a wave has a drawing of it with a wave somewhere at the ready. I would imagine.
We have a version 1 and a version 2. I got to tell you a funny story about Ed. It's quick.
Yeah, please.
The first time I met Ed was about 20 plus years ago. And he came up to my table at a knife show in Southern California. And he asked me if I had a knife that would penetrate soft body armor. And I'd been working, this was well into my career, working with all the special forces and special warfare operators and all that over the years. And I looked at him and I said, why would you want something like that? And he goes, well, I need to be able to penetrate soft body armor. And I said, I don't have any knives like that. I don't have anything. And he looked at me and he goes, kind of looks like some of those knives would do that. And I go, no, they won't. They'll probably, but they're not good for that at all. And so he walked away. And he came back about an hour later and he said, Ernie, or Mr. Emerson, he said, every guy in this show tried to sell me a knife that would penetrate soft body armor. You're the only person in the show that refused to sell me a knife. what's the deal? And again, at the risk of offending somebody, I said, here's the deal. I said, we've got a huge problem going on down below the border with the cartel, and the cartels and everything. And I said, you're a Mexican, and you came up to me and asked me if I made a knife that would penetrate soft body armor. I'm not going to sell you a knife. I don't know who you are. And he goes, wow, that's pretty interesting. Because again, everybody was jumping over their table to sell me something. And so he said, you know what, I'll be back tomorrow. So he comes back the next day, and he's got all of his official credentials. And he was, at that time, I think he was a personal bodyguard for one of the governors of one of the provinces down there, or states. And so at that point, he goes, dude, you and I are going to have a good relationship, because there's a lot of things that I think we could do together. And at that point, I said, okay, cool. You're a good guy.
Yeah.
And, but that was an interesting story. That started our friendship, and now we're as strong with each other as we've ever been. So
yeah, and before the Elvia, he used to carry a lot the Persian.
yeah, well, there's a long story behind that one too, which I can't tell. about that exact Persian knife that he carries too.
Yeah,
it's very interesting. Saved his life. Let's just say that.
I got a question. I think 2 days ago you posted some pictures about some balisons. What's happening there? What is that?
Well, okay, this is perfect. Now, Bob, if you don't mind,
please.
I happen to have my first knife right here in front of me, and guess what that knife was?
Oh, wow. Wow.
No way.
Wow.
There it is.
The balison that you made.
Balison. Now, I've told that story before, so I won't spend too much time on it. But the reason that I made my first knife was because I was a student at a school that was taught by Filipinos, Richard Bastillo and Dan Inosanto. They were two of Bruce Lee's original students. And because they were Filipino, the knife, when we got into the edge weapons aspects of the martial arts training, they used the balisongs. And at that point in time, the only company that made balisongs outside of the Philippines was a company called Pacific Cutlery, run by a gentleman named Les Diasis. And the balisongs were over $100. And I was literally a starving student, and the dues at the school were $12.50 a month. And there were times when I could not afford to pay the $12.50 to be a member of the school. And so Dan or Richard would say, hey, Ernie, just go in and clean the bathrooms and sweep the floors, and we'll call it even. So I asked Richard Bastillo if I could borrow his balisong and to make a knife. And he said, yes, you can. So he gave it to me on a Wednesday or Thursday, and I took it home, and over the weekend I cobbed together a knife with a hand drill and some files. This blade is hand filed with a file to get the bevels on it, and I heat treated it with a blowtorch and stuff like that. And came back the following Monday and showed him the knife, and I said, here it is. And he wanted to see it, and he said, well, it's not good, but it's not bad. He was a real character. He's since passed away. He was a dear friend of mine, which was a terrible loss to the world of martial arts. But anyway, at that point, I found out that there were other students in the school who were just as poor as I was, and they approached me and said, hey, Ernie, would you make me one of those? And I said, well, if you spend the $12 or $15 to buy the aluminum and the steel, I'll make a knife for you too. And so that actually started my knife making career, although I didn't know I was going to be a knife maker at that time, because I was at that time I was a machinist at Hughes Aircraft. So that was why I was able to actually kind of, I guess I had a little bit of a head start on somebody who had never worked with machines and stuff like that. So anyway, this is the first knife. So my roots in knife making go back to the balisong. That's the reason I started. Now, this is another little strange part of that story. Pacific Cutlery moved to Oregon, and guess what they became? They became Benchmade Knives.
Benchmade.
So fast forward like 20 years, and I'm standing in the offices with Les and Roberta Diasis, making the Cqc6 knife design on their CAD system for Benchmade. And how ironic is that I couldn't afford to buy a Benchmade knife, which forced me to make a knife. And all of a sudden I'm designing a knife for them. And that knife, actually, the Cqc6 that you described earlier, that became the #1 selling knife in the world. And it was, of course, the very first, I guess, legitimate tactical knife that took the world by storm. And we've never looked back. We still make the Cqc6. It's still one of our top selling knives in the history of our company. So I guess it's kind of like some things, if they're good, they're good. They don't have a shelf life on them, you know. So here we are. Now, that was the belly song. I've got more if you have time. So.
Yes, we do.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to say, we have a little bit more time. Let's check out some of these knives you got.
Yeah, so the ones you were grinding, what are they? Christmas or something? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, back to the belly songs. We do make belly songs now. Yeah. We just don't make a whole bunch of them because, again, we're always forced with the situation as a knife company. If we're selling, you know, all our knives that are model A, B, and C, it's tough to fit in a new model D, E, and F because we're making the knives that we're selling. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, like I said, Emerson time, things take a long time. But yeah, I've got a run of ballet songs that'll be coming up. It's our second run that'll be coming up in a month or two, maybe after Christmas time and stuff like that. So those are the custom ones that I was working on in those videos. And but we'll have those up too. So keep your eyes on our website and all that.
Ernest, I have a question for you. When you come up with a signature series blade, like the 17, for instance, or some of the awesome that recurve Tanto that you showed off a couple of days ago, Edwin, how do you decide whether or not that's going to go into regular production?
Generally, well, there's two things at play in that. Number one, what reception does it get from the users, from all the people that are potential, knife owners, if you will. The other thing is I'm pretty good at picking the right ones, and that's not a braggadocious thing. That's just from years and years of doing knives, designing knives, using them in an environment where we were always being tested for comfort, the different aspects that go into a good tool. Because again, my knives are tools. That's what I've always viewed them as, and it's what I will always view them as. And as you know, a tool is something that you horse it around. You use it hard, you grab it hard, you push and pull on it hard. And if there's things on that tool that cause you discomfort or hot spots or blisters or anything like that, that's a defect.
Yeah. And
so I guess I'm just a working class guy from the start. I grew up on a dairy farm. It's a lot of work in my background. I'm more at home with a hammer and nails and a pitchfork than I'm in heaven. So I'm just a tool using guy, and that has helped me, I guess, maybe make better tools in terms of knives. So again, I can make something that is a good tool, but again, if the people that are out there, it's that size 22 shoe again. If no one's interested in it, then it just goes into my safe or into a box. So, right. But just from, I guess, practical experience, I've got a little bit of, if I make 3 or 4 knives, I know that 1 or 2 of them is going to be a fairly good knife. Let's say.
I got one question. It might be, but now that you are getting into that new market of autos, Are you guys planning to expand outside of California in terms of your production and all that? Because I know there's some laws that you guys are. Again, you don't need to answer, but you
I've learned to never say never. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I can't go
Yeah.
any further than that at this
Okay,
point.
you cannot count. Okay.
My daughter moved to Colorado recently. That's
what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
the auto division may end up finding a new place and home.
Okay.
We'll say that.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Before we move on, Edwin, if there are any last questions you want to ask Mr. Emerson, please.
Well, it was my dream to share my story with him. A knife that I will never imagine 22 years after, or 21. I don't know. I could tell the guy that designed the knife how I feel. I feel very strong on carrying an Emerson with me and all that. So hey, that's a pleasure. So nothing.
Edwin, it's my pleasure because it's guys like you that give me the chance to do the thing that I love to do. And if it weren't for guys like you, I wouldn't be able to make knives. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Edwin.
Thank you, man. No problem.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Bye-bye.
Ernest, in a minute, I want to introduce you to who our next guest is going to be because he's an up-and-comer, and he's already got a thriving new career, and he's got a very interesting take. But before we go there, I want to comment on your comment on tools. You talk about how your approach to designing and making knives is primarily as tools, and you harken back to your time on the farm, and you talk about how you use a tool. You pick it up, you use it, you throw it down. Sometimes, you drop it here or there. You don't take special care until you're done and you're cleaning it. And to me, it just occurred to me, there's always this like, well, why still 154 cm? It's like, because 154 cm is still, in my opinion, the best steel all around for working. Why still G10? Why isn't he using carbon? You're still making the same tool. You're making different designs, and it's the design itself that is the real power of the tool. I mean, when Edwin was talking about the G10, I don't think he was only talking about the grip. I think he was also talking about the ergonomics of your handle design and how underwater, under stress, that knife was not a concern. It was an extension of his hand. And in that regard, it just reminds me of how much room and how much space there is in the knife world. You come from a background of making beautiful jewelry knives. I don't know how else to put it. So, I mean, obviously you got the chops, but the tool thing is, I think that's the main through line. And that's one of the things I love about your knives.
Well, there's two things that you've kind of triggered in my thoughts about that. You could have the most high-tech space age, came from outer space, from Area 51 materials to build a knife out of. But if it's a bad design, it's going to be a bad knife, no matter the materials. You can have if you have a good design, you could get by with even steel that wasn't even heat treated, and it would still function and be a usable tool to some certain degree. But you have to have a good design, and that's the key to it. That is what the knife is. I got it. Everybody wants, this is the new thing. This is the new super steel. And I always talk about super steels. Every year there's a new super steel. Well, I remember the new super steel that was 20 years ago, and it's gone. And I remember the new super steel that was 18 years ago, and it's gone. So how super are they? I got it. Steel companies have to sell steel. 154 is like O1 and W1. Those are steels that are never going to go away. My knives, and this is braggadocious, and I'll stand toe to toe with anyone on earth. My knives are used by the hardest users on the planet Earth, and they have been for over 30 years. 154, perfect. So, again, until you show me a steel that never gets dull or whatever, we're good with it. And again, I'm talking about users. I'm not talking about tech guys that, this cuts 10 million shavings of whatever. I don't pay any attention to any of that.
That's interesting for its own scientific research. That's basically what I'm getting at, is like there's so much room for all levels and of tastes and collecting and use, but for the purpose, for the hard use, man. It's like Super Steel Steve said, if you need it absolutely not to break, get an Emerson. What?
I'm going to tell you a little inside story.
Oh, please.
If you don't mind.
No.
And again, I don't want to eat up all the time, and I do want to show some of these knives, but because we're a manufacturer, we have a close relationship with basically all the steel manufacturers. I'm going to tell you a little inside story. There was a steel that was out there that was a super steel, and it has a XYZ 25ZX, and I'm going to make up the names. So XYZ 25ZX. And what happened was they were going to work with a individual who was designing a series of kitchen knives, and he had some specific things he wanted in the kitchen knife. So they changed the formula of that XYZ 25ZX steel and basically dumbed it down for the kitchen knife. And the individual said, well, let's call it, it's not as good as the XYZ 25ZX, so let's call it XYZ 24ZX. And the steel company said, no, we can't do that because no one's going to buy the 24 because there's already a 25. So let's call it XYZ 26ZX. Well, the XYZ 26ZX became the new super steel, and it was, according to all of the people involved in the project, including their metallurgists, a vastly inferior steel to the XYZ 25ZX, yet it became, and this steel was on the cover of magazines and everything else, and guys were touting it all over. And I knew the history of the steel. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. It's hype, and that's what it's all about. They got to sell that steel, but by adding the next number up, it became better. And so those are the things you got to watch out. Again, if you use it, you'll understand. If you use your tools, you'll understand.
Also, if you maintain them, you'll understand. I love maintaining 154. Nick asks, Ernie, do you still carry the Tiger every day? I EDC the custom CSF. Why do you prefer the Tiger?
Well, it's funny. I don't carry the Tiger anymore, but it's funny because I have all of the knives that I've carried over the years. I generally carry a knife for about 2 years, and then at some point I could carry any knife I want really any knife I want from anybody. And but I carried the Tiger for a number of years because I love the curved blade. I love the ergonomics of that handle. It shows up on a couple of our different knife models, and it's just a very, very good utilitarian type knife. But I'll show you that the knife that I do carry now is the Emerson folding steak knife.
Oh yeah.
And I have found, and it's not even waved, and I have found that I use this knife for every single thing every day long. And I mean, we live on a ranch, so I've got, animals, horses, all kinds of stuff. And so that knife, the Emerson steak knife, I also use when we go out to eat. My wife and I go out to eat occasionally, and I actually used it last night to cut up a burrito. So nice. It's
that's to the me, carnivore, right?
Yeah, it's the carnivore, or was the carnivore. Camillus, I think, has a trademark on the name carnivore, so we switched it over and just called it the Emerson folding steak knife. But that's the knife that I actually carry now. But the Tiger, it's funny. I was just looking at my Tiger last night when I was getting these knives out for the show today.
Well, Ernest, can you show? Knife. Can you show? Yeah. The Tiger and for me the Iron Dragon. And I know I put them in the same. It's like, oh well, whatever. Now I'm going down a rabbit hole. But let me. Yeah.
I don't have it with me.
You were talking about Richard Bustillo, and
there's the Iron Dragon.
Love this thing. If you could, I'd love for you to show us some of these knives.
Okay.
that you have in front of
I'll
you,
go
and then
quickly.
I want to introduce you to Alex Steingraber, and just because you two are kind of in a similar realm in terms of tool making. So in any case, let me see what you got here.
I'm going to go quickly as I can here, and these are just in pretty much random order. But here's a knife that was one of the very first folding knives that I ever made, and it was a lock back. You can see the lock is back here, but you know, it was a Tonto-esque, a Japanese style, and that knife goes back to maybe 79, 80, 81 when I was doing these kind of on my lunch hour when I was supposed to, at work.
Using Hughes aircraft machines to start Emerson knives. Hey, I don't think they're around anymore.
No, they're not. Here is one of the first 2 or 3 knives that I made, which was another lockback type knife. And that one I placed in the middle. It's a tight lockback. But anyway, that one, and that has white micarta that has now aged to that real nice patina. And again, this blade is, you can see, it was a mirror finish that I put on it. I had a button on it to open. And that was all done. Again, I had no grinders or anything at the time. So that knife, again, was done by hand with a file, and then hand sanded to get it to be a nice finish. I have a couple of just interesting knives that I just pulled out to show you. This is the original prototype Rhino knife.
Yes.
And that knife, it actually has the hole through the handle, so when it's closed, you can stick a grenade pin through there and just bend it so that it wouldn't. It had to be flight certified or jump certified because of the guys that I was working with.
Wait. Let's talk about this knife real quick.
Okay.
So this is a unicorn. This is like a holy grail to collectors. I don't even think Edwin has one of these, but I could be mistaken. Tell me about the serrated edge on the back.
Well, at the time, I was going back and forth to Coronado and doing some things for the Navy SEAL teams. I was working with a gentleman named Nick North, who was he was the RTD and research test development and evaluation officer down there, and he introduced me to some guys that were, I guess, kind of a special skill set, and they were involved in developing all the hand-to-hand combat and CQC techniques for their program. And at the time, they were using a Spyderco. I can't remember the name of the knife, but it has a long curved blade.
It was the civilian.
Yeah. But they had to flip the knife over so it was reversed in your hand, and you ran the risk of depressing the lock back if you were in a gorilla grip on it. And so they said, could you make a knife for me, for us, that was curved up and had the serrations on the top? Now, I don't want to go into all the details of why that knife had to have a curve and why it had to have serrations, but if you were to take the knife and pull it toward you like that, you can imagine what an effect that would have on whatever it is you were cutting.
Right. And
so I took the knife model that I was making called the ES1, which was became the Commander. Took that body, put the blade in it that is basically sharpened along the bottom and the top. And it struck me, it looked like a rhino horn, so I called it the Rhino. And I got a contract with the Navy teams to build them a lot of those knives for a while. And so that knife was a specific purpose tool. And again, you got to understand again, it was a tool. Guys will make knives and go, oh, wow, that's a fancy design. Look at all these curves and all this and that. I got it. I like fine art too, but this wasn't designed to look anyway or be anything. It was a tool. And so again, being a purpose-driven design. But that's basically the story of the Rhino. But that's the very first one right there.
Love that.
I have another knife that I'll show you. This is the NASA knife, and you can see it's actually got some rust on it. Well, maybe you can't see it, but it's got some rust on it. That was a knife that I designed. It was a spec war knife that I designed for use on the International Space Station program. And you can see it's got a little piece of Velcro right here, because when you're in outer space, things float around. And if you were using a knife and you had to just put it someplace, you couldn't set it down on a table, you just stick it to the wall, because they had these Velcro patches that were everywhere. And so this knife was designed to cut and or open up the special vacuum sealed food pouches and things like that. So we put a little hook here up on the front end so you could pierce and then pull it back to open up the
unzip it.
Yeah, unzip it.
So has that one been to space? Is that why it has the
this one?
Velcro?
This knife spent about 3 months on the this exact knife spent about 3 months on the here's the card that goes with it from my friend who was actually another Navy SEAL, Bill Shepard, who ran the entire space station program.
Wow.
And this knife probably has more miles on it than any other knife in history, because it was up there for several months, floating around, orbiting the Earth. And that's a real NASA knife, and it went through all the White Sands testing to make sure there was no anything that would outgas in a zero G environment and stuff like that. And I had worked in an environment where those things were. I knew a lot about that. They were flight qualified, and because I worked on satellites and stuff like that for years and years. Right. So anyway, that's the NASA knife that a lot of people have never seen. This knife is a Commander, and it is the only Damascus knife, the only Damascus ever made by Ernest Emerson.
Wow.
And the story behind that is I went to Japan as a guest of the Japanese government to help them basically revamp the cutlery industry over there in Seiki City, Japan. And that had to do with the fact that at that time, China was coming on very strong and was sucking a lot of their manufacturing away from Japan. So I went over there and spent several weeks in Japan working with the different companies. And at the same time, they found out that I was a student of history and or Japanese weapons and things like that. And I was very interested, of course, in samurai weapons, the swords and all that. And they were like, oh my gosh. And the doors opened up for me. So I got a chance to spend several days with what you would call they call them living treasures. And he was a swordsmith. I can't remember his name. It was hard for me to pronounce back then. I'd really butcher it up now. But he and I made a couple of swords, and he had me make this Damascus. It was one of those. It's like I stepped into a time capsule and went back in time. You know, the steel had to be heated to the color of the cherry blossom in June.
Yeah. In June.
Yeah. So anyway, it was all of that good stuff. But this is the only Emerson-made Damascus that ever has existed. So that's a unique one.
That's cool.
This is a knife that I'm very proud of. It's actually not the knife. I always make, when I'm doing something real special, I usually make two of them, because if I goof one up, which believe me, I'm prone to do, I have a backup. And this is a knife that I made for Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And we inlaid that, the Rolling Stones tongue on it. Keith is besides being what I consider the greatest rock and roll guitarist of all times, he's also he's a knife guy. He's a knife fanatic.
He used to carry the Gypsy Jack a lot, I know.
Well, he carries that, and he carries one of those crazy okapis.
Oh, South
African knife. Yeah. It's kind of like a ratcheting thing. It's kind of cool. I got it. But anyway, I made that one for him. I found these. So cool. I'm going through my safe to get everything squared away because I'm not to get into some craziness, but if I were to catch COVID and pass away, my family would be like, "What's this knife?"
No. That's a good thing to be doing. Write all this stuff down. I got this from so and so. I got.
Now here we go. This is the original. This was my carry, original Cqc6 knife.
Wow.
And that was the knife that became the knife that was used by the SEAL teams and everybody else in special operations. You can see it's got the little tweezers on it and everything like that. You can see it was a work in progress. It didn't have the turned down bolster on it. It has a screw, what they call a screw-in pivot assembly, which was before I ended up using the two-part pivot system. But that's the original Cqc6.
Wow.
And it was black tea. And it's funny because I've had collectors. Literally, I've had a collector. He offered me $100,000 for this knife, and I was like, friends. It's just one of those things where like there's two stupid people in this room. The guy who
the guy offering $100,000 and the guy saying
who
no.
refused it. But I still have it, so because I can't make another one, and
yeah,
that's
it. And the next generation could sell it for twice that. So
if they want, they can do anything they want with my knives. But I'm making sure that I've got all the documentation to go with these. So those are the knives that I had. I just pulled out a few just to show you. I hope I haven't wasted too much of your time, but
you haven't wasted a mere second. That actually. Aside, we talked about doing a deep cut on your ancient weapons collections, but it'd also be cool at some point to look at more of these vault finds, because you'll do this every once in a while on your YouTube channel. You'll dig out some cool old knife, show it off. And I want to talk about the Eagle at some point. I don't even know if that's what it's called, but that's what it looks like.
Cqc9. Yeah.
What a crazy knife, but we'll save that for the next time.
Sure.
Now I would like, it would be my honor to introduce you to this next gentleman, our next guest, Alex Steingraber. Alex, it's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for joining us, sir.
This is like a dream come true, man.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure you get that a lot, but
it's so much fun. No, I don't. But I truly appreciate it. And it's just fun because I'll tell you, think about it. You're able to do something. I was fishing way up in northern Canada one time, and there was a guide, and his name was Rudy, and he was from Arkansas. And I said, how does a guy from Arkansas get all the way up here into northern Canada as a guide? And he said, Ernie, he goes, I was coming up here fishing. I love fishing. All of a sudden I found out that people would pay me to do something I love to do. And he goes, I've never worked another day in my life since then. So
that's how I feel making knives.
Is that cool or what? I mean,
it's awesome.
About it. Yeah. Because it's a passion. Making knives is not a job.
No, it's not. Nope.
So Alex, would you say that was accurate in my setup? I said, Ernest was talking about making tools and how that's like the most important thing to him is making sure that what he's creating is going to do what it's supposed to do. And then everything after that is, window dressing, if you will. I mean, pleasing window dressing. Is that an accurate set? That's kind of how I feel your approach is.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I'm all for the, titanium Damascus and Zerk and, milled titanium handles. But at the end of the day, it's a tool. You need it to be used as a tool. And I mean, you can put a lipstick on a pig and it's still going to be a pig at the end of the day. So, I don't know.
I'm sure we've all learned that the hard way.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I don't think that people should have to take out a loan to buy a knife. It should be fairly affordable and just be able to use it as intended,
Well, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And Alex, where are you from?
I'm from Rochester, New York.
Okay, so you're out there working every day then. Yeah. So honest, it's funny because a 21-year-old graphics designer, they don't usually make the best knives.
Yeah.
I like working people, man. I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Well, Ernest, before we let you go, now this might be putting you a little bit on the spot, but if I have Alex right here on the screen. If you were to impart a word of wisdom to Alex from your perspective, to what would it be?
Well, it never, ever lose the faith in what you're doing, because if you do, you'll lose the passion. And we have a special place in what we do, in that always remember, no one needs my knife. Not one single person on earth needs an Emerson knife, because there are knives made by Alex Steingraber. There's knives made by other knife makers. There's knives made by Benchmade and Gerber and everybody else. And the important thing is, when you have that passion for what you do and you stay true to why you're doing this, that'll translate right through from your hand through that knife into the hand of the guy who's standing in front of you at a show or in your shop or wherever. And that's just an important thing. But again, never take it for granted, and always know that nobody needs to buy one of those damn knives, because they can go to Walmart and get one for $9.95. And if we keep that in mind, you'll go far. They will go far. And I love the fact that you said no one has to, you don't have to spend a Lamborghini money to buy a car that'll get you to work and back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you.
Good luck, Alex. I've seen your work. It's absolutely, it's right up my alley. So, I'm a fan. So
thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Ernest Emerson, thank you so much for joining us on the Knife Junkie Town Hall. It's been a real pleasure as always, and I look forward to doing that deep cut on your ancient weapons collection.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Well, Alex, sir, thank you for coming on, man. It's a pleasure to have you. Sorry, the timing of these things never work out how I schedule
it's fine,
them,
man.
but that's the beauty part of it. We're live and in an open forum here.
Oh yeah. I was just doing sheath work and had the microphone off and just plugging away and listening to everything that Ernest had to say. And it's just like, it's crazy, man.
Nice. Well, before we get going, I want to congratulate you on the last run of Sharks that you had. I think they were in 3V, and I most definitely missed them.
M4.
M4.
Yeah.
The next ones are 4V, right?
No, the next ones are going to be 10V and S90V.
All right. I could totally jack that up. Okay, my point is, congratulations on that run. And you were like, hey, these are going to come out. And then the day they came out, I was, you snooze, you lose, and I missed out on them. But I'm going to get the next batch of 10V, and I'm going to be the only one on my block in Virginia to have 10V steel.
That's right.
So how's it going, man? Tell me what's going on in your shop right now.
Yeah, it's been going good. It's been slow. I was waiting on this run of Sasquatches that I did. Came back from laser engraving. We had some issues in laser engraving. So I do a Z mark now on all my knives. It's like a black lasered mark that burns the metal. The laser wouldn't touch this Rex 121.
Really?
So it was interesting. And so we had to go with the deep engraving on here. And
we got
them done. And this is the Sasquatch model in Rex 121, which this is going to be the last batch in Rex 121. It's just, this steel is such a novelty, and it's very, very hard to work with. Even though it is at 70 to 71 Rockwell, it's very, very difficult to work with. And the lasers have issues with it. There's issues cutting it out, so there's more finishing work to do and stuff like that. So
is Rex 14? Is it brittle? I mean, like what's its Achilles heel?
That's the Achilles heel. The more alloys you have and the more carbides you have in a steel, the more brittle it's going to be. It's not for lateral stresses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can batten it into wood and stuff, and I mean, it should hold up pretty fine. But as soon as you twist it like this, it's going to snap. I actually have Sasquatch from another run that I have to work on and regrind down to a shorter blade because somebody broke the tip off, putting it into a log and twisting it out. So
being a dumbass. No, I'm just kidding. No, but so it seems like on a knife the size of the Sasquatch or the Shark, a very, very hard and brittle steel that cuts really well is kind of in order, because chances are it's not the kind of knife you're going to use in a torquing motion, because it's a smaller kind of just cutting.
Yeah, correct. And then going forward on the Sasquatches, I'm going to run 3V on that and probably bring down the hardness to around 60 Rockwell, just so people can have that opportunity to really get on it and make it more affordable.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
And then it has the G10 Day Glow liners on it with the green micarta.
Edwin says that looks great for skinning.
Yeah. It would be a nice skinning knife because you can really get into small places with it, and a lot of pinch grippiness and really get into stuff. So
when you were on the podcast, we talked about how you're not only doing knives, but I mean, like, you're not only designing, making knives, but you are really going deeply into heat treating and kind of studying the qualities of the different steels you're using in a practical sense. You know, you have knife steel nerds studying things from the inside out. You're kind of looking from the outside in. How do these knives perform? How do they heat treat? But also, you do heat treat service. I just sent you some 2 blades that I hacked out, and you of AEBL, and you masterfully have heat treated them. I think they haven't gotten back to me yet. I'm sure they will. But as you mentioned to Ernest Emerson, you don't think people should have to take out a loan to buy a knife. You also don't think people should wait a year and take out a loan to get knives heat treated. What do you think is the need for this?
So the need right now, at least from what I've seen, there's very few places you can send things out to heat treat. I mean, you can have your local places do it. There's no wait times there. But I mean, as far as companies, like there's Peters, there's True Grit, there's other places, and it's a long wait to get knives heat treated. And if you don't have over 100 knives, then it's not really worth their time, at least from a business standpoint. Like if it were me and like I had a giant business and I was heat treating and like somebody sent me 2 knives, like, yeah, I'll get them into the rotation at some point. But I mean, they have these higher end customers that they need to tend to. So I was thinking just like any like small make that has like 1 or 2 knives that are within a certain range or length or whatever that needs something heat treated that isn't like 1095 or something, I could, just heat treat it for them and then get it out the door to them and just be done with it. But yeah, I mean, so far you're my first customer, and
okay, I'm not going to name names, but I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I am a total amateur weekend knife maker every other year. Like, it's not like I have even a regular habit of, but I'll cut things out and then and I'll get hot on them for a while, and then I'll take them up to the heat treat level. And I'm like, but then I have to send them to California and wait for like 4 months without any word, and then hope they come back.
Yep.
And for a hobbyist, that's very, very frustrating, because I'm not a guy who's got like 25 blades to send somewhere that they're gonna like do quickly and send back. So I think your service is awesome, and I think that people, well, two reasons that I think it's awesome, not having experienced it yet, is that I can see from just watching you how much you are into getting heat treating right, and how it's a passion of yours and an interest of yours. So I feel like you're going to do a great job, but also, man, a reasonable price and quick turnaround.
Yeah. For
someone like me, or for someone who is someone who's way beyond me and an up and comer, I think it's a great service.
Mm-hmm.
So congratulations on having that great idea,
Alex.
Yeah,
thanks, man.
No, kidding. So now you're in the sheathing process.
Yep.
Right. What does that entail? You don't use leather, right? You use Kydex.
Yeah, I use Kydex. There's 2 types of thermoplastic, Kydex and Bullstex. You can get one you have to heat up hotter, which is the Bullstex. It's more of a military grade type thermoplastic, and then there's Kydex. I actually think I got sent Bullstex on these because I was heating it to a very low temperature and it wasn't forming correctly, so I had to stick it back in the oven and really ramp on it. But I hate making sheaths. It's like one of the things that I really don't like doing, because there's so much, it's so time intensive. Whereas a knife, it's like, you're heat treating and you're doing this and you're grinding, and there's like, it's all, not so monotonous. This is very monotonous. And I think I'm going to invest in a vacuum press and kind of make it so it's a little bit easier on me. Because right now I have a hand press and it's just too much.
Oh, yeah. And a lot can go wrong. So someone was just asking before, why are people so secretive about their heat treat recipes? And are you?
I'm not secretive, but the thing is with the heat treating thing, and I talked to somebody about this last night, and I think the wording that people use when they talk about heat treating, they'll say custom heat treat. Mm-hmm. And what they mean is they mean optimized heat treat. So what you're doing is you have your small even heat kiln, and then you have the data sheet, and those things aren't going to coincide with each other because the oven is so small. And these are like for industrial heat treating applications. Will they work? Yeah, they'll work, but you want to really optimize the heat treat for these smaller ovens.
Right. So
what I do is I'll take a few coupons and I'll test like 25 degrees out and then 25 degrees in, and then wherever I find the best, hardness for that metal, I'll use that protocol. But I'm not secretive. Like if people have questions about heat treating, like I'll give them my recipe, but depending on the oven, it's probably not going to work out for you. You have to adjust for that difference.
It's like you're doing bracketing in photography.
Yep, exactly.
We have a viewer, Charles, and I think this might be the guy who turned me on to you, actually. But we have Charles in the green room who'd like to come on and talk to you for a minute.
Yeah, man.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, what's up, dude?
Not much. I'm just wondering, do you have a catalog on your site?
I don't have a catalog on my site, but I will be putting things up as they come out, and I'll leave them up on my site so then people can look at them. And then once those orders are ready to be fulfilled, I'll populate a quantity of knives, and then add more designs as I go through. It's just too much right now because it's like I'm the knife maker and the tech guy and then the other guy and
the marketing guy. Hey, that's a good question, Charles. Why don't you let us know, Alex, how you release your knives, how they come out? Do you have books? Do you have orders? How does that work?
Nope, I don't have books, but I do have a email sign up similar to Emerson, and you just go on the website, sign up, and I'll send out emails probably 2 or 3 before things drop, and then definitely let people know the dates of those drops, and then they can be ready. I'm trying to gear it towards all coasts, but I might change the timing so people don't have to wait so long on the East Coast versus the West Coast and stuff. But yeah, definitely sign up for the emails, and that's the best way to know about the drops.
That'd be good. Hey,
you broke up.
Of yours.
Charles, ask that one more time. You broke up there, sir.
I said, I'm a big fan of yours.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
On your YouTube channel.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, he's Alex has a really, really excellent Instagram. Has a very excellent Instagram. What's that thing called? Presence, not following, but account. And you're kind of always posting stuff, and it's a great way to keep up with you too. Charles, thank you so much for joining us on the Knife Junkie Town Hall, sir. This is what this is all about. People come on, let's ask questions and ask the maker. Thank you, Charles. Take care, sir.
You too.
Thank you. Take it easy.
So this is the shop. You're in the shop, and you've got all those belts behind you. And now you were just talking about doing steels like Rex and other like really hard. How does that affect your expendables? Is that what you call them? Like your belts and things that you just.
Yeah. So like before I was using Norton Blaze belts. It's pretty popular in the industry. They're the orange belts. You see people use all the time. Those are fairly expensive. They're about $7 a belt. So it really does rack up in costs. But I recently, this past summer, I talked to an abrasives engineer that worked at VSM Abrasives, and they're a German company, but they're located all over the world. They're pretty big. They're like the 3rd largest, I think, in abrasives, if not the 2nd largest. And I talked to him, and he said, actually, those Norton belts aren't that great because there's a resin in there that holds the grit on, and that's actually harder than most resins on other belts. So it doesn't shear off the abrasive to then leave you a fresh cutting surface. So he said, try these belts out. I'll send you some. He sent me some belts and they were, you know, amazing. I mean, they wear out, but like you're getting a good cutting surface every time. So as far as like the Rex 121, I can get a few blades out of that, but all the other belts, like, or all the other steels, I can really rip through a lot of blades before I have to change out and get fresh belts. So, and the cost is very cost effective, and buying everything in bulk is very helpful. I have a local distributor that works with VSM and gets me my belts. So,
well, I ask about the belts because it makes me wonder, and I've wondered this about larger knife outfits too. When they go to a different steel, a harder steel, a higher end super steel, and the price jumps up so much, and yet I've looked at the cost of sheet steel, you know, just raw before it's being worked, and the price difference in a sheet of 1095 and a sheet of you know, S35VN isn't that much.
mm-hmm.
But it must be in the processing, in the building, where
Yep.
all that cost is coming in.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, I think like that's the reason why you're not going to see a lot of Rex 121, other than like it's very fragile, or fragile for normal day use. Is the machining of it? I mean, you have to get everything, you know, machined down. You have to make sure everything's like water cooled, but then you have to make sure the abrasive isn't going to wear out after 2 or 3 knives. Like,
Right.
They grind a lot of these knives on these big, I think they're called burger machines or Berg machines. And what happens, it'll grind one side, and then you'll take the knife out and you'll flip it around and you'll grind it on the other side, and it comes down and grinds. It's all wet grinding, but again, the abrasives do tend to wear out. So you need to make sure that, you know, you're not putting a super hard steel in there and grinding it.
Yeah. I mean, it almost seems like it would be less worth your while, you know, but to do it every once in a while and to get people going nuts about. Josh over at Razor Edge was asking, what were those belts again?
They're called VSM abrasives. There's a few like styles. I actually have the product number if you want to shoot me a DM or something like that. But,
I think that's exactly what he wants, because he said he's had a number of them, but he wants to try those specific belts.
Yeah, because the ones that I got aren't like sold at True Grit or anything like that. You have to order them through VSM, and you have to find a distributor to then get them. But I think these ones are just they're more grit per area than the ones they sell on True Grit. So
that's an interesting. Jim, can you put that last comment back up? That's an interesting shop talk bit there. I like the VSM, but only tried 120 grit, very aggressive up front, but there's a little too much wobble side to side for me.
Yeah. I had that issue too before, and I talked to the engineer. He said they actually addressed that. There's a few like runs that I'll get that are a little bit wobbly, so I'll save them for like just doing the spine or something like that, or shaping like doing the flats on like the handles or something. So I'll just set those aside, and I'll get the really, really nice.
So what causes the wobble? Is it a in cross section? Is it a little bit more adhesive on one side of it than the other, or
no? So like the belt is like actually I have one on here. So you have the belt, but this is on a giant roll, and then it goes through a cutter and it cuts it. And if you get like an end piece, or like if the cutter's off kilter, it'll wobble the cut. So then when you're spinning this at a very high rate, it's going to wobble on this side, and you're not going to get a crisp like grind line or anything like that. So
that's interesting. That's a beautiful grinder behind you too.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. I mean, not knowing a damn thing about a damn thing, but it's blue. And someday I hope to have a tricked out shop that I go into every once in a while. So what are you designing next? What's your, are you, okay, let me ask you this. In your investigations of steel and heat treating and that sort of, I hate to use this term, but in that side of your journey, dealing with steels and stuff, do you make a couple of designs, make them simple, and then kind of put the designing part aside for a while, and then just focus on working the materials?
Yeah, but like as far as designs, I don't really have any newer designs yet, just because I want to make sure I can get through a bunch of sharks to kind of help fund everything and then
Yeah.
kind of keep everything going. What I'm actually working on right now is just a lot of fusion and cam and that sort of thing to kind of get all of that process into a machining and manufacturing type thing. Like, so I've been going through and calling every CNC machine company that I can think of in the area and outside the area to help me with milling, like the bevels or milling the spines and making everything like nice and perfect. But they won't touch it. And the people that will touch it, they want over like 500 pieces. And it's just something I can't offer at this point. So I might as well just do it myself. And that's what I'm going to do, is just try to save up and then, do the banking thing and see if I can get the equipment I need to actually help me with that. But right now it's mostly just been focusing on fusion and cam and getting everything in there. And it's also going to help me when I come out with a folder design or something, it's going to help me get all of that stuff in there and be able to go right from the computer software into the machines.
Newman Outdoors Newman asks, what is your website, or what's the best way for people to check your stuff and contact you?
So you can check my stuff and go to my Instagram, and my website's right there in the bio, but it is spkunlimited.com. That's my DBA, is my SPK Unlimited. So
the P is performance, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
So what are your favorite materials to work with in terms of handle?
Right now, it's mostly been just Taro Tough. That's probably my favorite material to work with. I like G10, but it's super messy to machine and grind and all that stuff. But there's ways around it, vacuums and dust collection and stuff like that. But Taro Tough is a great material. It's similar to micarta. It's layered polyester, and they use polyester binder, so it's non-toxic.
Oh.
And you can get whatever thickness you want and whatever sheet size you want. I get the biggest sheet that they offer, and it's made right in America. It's made in I think Portland, Oregon. But I talk with those people like probably like twice a month, once a week type thing, and go back and forth with them, figure out different colors if they can make different colors and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like it's a nice durable material. And then it's rough too. So if you get it wet, it's not going to slip out of your hand. Like
micarta.
Yeah, like a buff micarta or something will slip out of your hand. So I think it's the best, like, harder use material for the knives. Again, they're tools. So
yeah. Well, we have Josh from Razor Edge who wants to come on and say a few words. Kolb says, what's the design differentials philosophies between the Shark and the Sasquatch? And then we'll bring Josh on.
Yeah, so the Shark, I wanted like an EDC fixed blade, and I didn't want it too big to where it wasn't EDCable, if that makes sense. So figuring that out, I needed to work with a lot of curves and kind of shrink things down, but also maintain like a nice stout knife. And so that's what this is like you get a full grip on it. You get a little bit outside of here, but if you have bigger hands, you should be able to hold on to this fully. And the blade is nice and, short. I think this blade length is like 2.8 inches. So it's like California legal and all that stuff. And then as far as the Sasquatch, I was looking for something to kind of house the Rex 121. But then I came out with a very comfortable design and a very nice, like, field or skinning knife design geared towards hunting and stuff. I'm a hunter, so I've ran into plenty of knives where I wasn't able to skin anything and really keep this inside of a carcass or something like that and get in and get all the bits. So, and then you have this nice trailing edge that helps with just touching and cutting and stuff. But this is also a very comfortable knife. Again, it's curved so we can shorten things up, and then it's EDC style. So
the geez, what was I was gonna say something. I just had a senior moment there. But you're talking about the curve and how it can accommodate you kind of with that spine curve, you can make a little bit more cutting edge. Yeah. I do EDC from time to time, fixed blade knives, and I love the way the handle is just big enough to fit in the hand, but the whole spine of the handle has a curve, which helps in my particular type of carry, and then the back end is kind of rolled over so that when it pokes into my love handles, it's not so obtrusive. Yeah, man.
And then you have a lanyard hole too if you're into the lanyard thing, so you can decorate it and stuff like that, or use it to pull the knife out. Or
so if you would hold the material very close to the camera of the handle. I just want to check out. Oh, that's
burlap micarta. and then Day-Glo spacers.
Dig that green spacer a lot.
I also have ones that don't have that spacer on there, and that also, I mean, looks pretty good too. But it's nice and thin.
Yeah, you get a slightly more svelte profile that way.
Yeah, I think going forward we're going to do it without the spacer, just because there's a lot of gluing involved with the spacer and a lot of stuff. And if I just do it without the spacer, I can just put the slab on the table and machine it on my CNC router and get everything ripped out. Nice.
I'm not sure if Josh from Razor Edge could make it on, but he's I'm sure you're familiar with that outfit. He does a lot of really awesome aftermarket regrinding, and he's got his own knife designs that are really cool too.
Yeah, I love his designs. They're really good.
He took one of my hinderers and hollow ground it, and it is super thin. Awesome thing. So Alex, what do you have coming up? Like what's in the offing for Steingraber Performance Knives, and what are you hoping to tackle here in the next year?
So the next year we only have a few months. I'm going to finish up these Sasquatches, get them out the door, and then the sharks, we're going to do the S90V shark, and that's going to be a navy blue Taro Tough. And then the 10V we're going to do, and that's going to be in a brown Taro Tough. And then I'm going to try to purchase more steel to maybe do a run of Sasquatches in 3V. And then while all that's going on, I'm going to try to get everything into Fusion and get everything into cam so I can cam and CNC all my handles out on my CNC router. And then finally I'll sit down and draw out a folder design and get that into Fusion. So when next year hits and funds become available or something happens, I can either send it out to get machined somewhere or machine it myself and really get like a folder design going for folks, because I know they've been asking for it, and I was on the fence about it to wait, but I think I need to get it in there. I need to get it done and just offer that at some point as well.
Yeah, I think if you've got a real strong EDC fixed blade game, it's kind of the next step, because everyone loves a folder. Everyone can carry a folder.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone feels they can, or not everyone legally can carry a fixed blade. But I mean, I'd love to see that shark in a folding version. Could he make my scales for my altitude? I'm not sure what he's talking about. Hey, Nick, good to see you, sir. I know you're at work, but good to have you here anyway. So, Alex, it's been awesome having you on the town hall. Is it anything you'd like to leave people with? Anything you want them to look out for? Anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, just sign up for the emails, look out for drops. If you have any questions about the knives, just DM me or email me or something like that. As far as heat treating, I'm not going to take a ton of blades at one time. So just like 3 or 4 is fine. And then if you have any heat treating things that you need help with, like a question, just let me know and we'll figure out the answer together. Yeah, I mean, again, just look out for all that stuff. And then I'll be doing a lot of computer work and getting things into Fusion and getting ready for next year and kind of recalibrating everything and trying to find a building right now so I can move into that and not, be in my garage and freezing. So,
well, I got to say, you're one of the people I've spoken to recently who've just really taken their passion for knives and in a very admirable way, running with it and growing, and it's great to see. So I wish you best of luck, but you don't need that. So instead, I'll just say break a leg on your new space, and we'll talk to you soon. And actually, it's kind of interesting. Josh was trying to get on to talk shop with you. Maybe for the next town hall, we'll get Josh as a guest on and bring you on, and you guys could talk abrasives and all that kind of exciting stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
That was, of course, a joke to those of you who love abrasives. Don't mean to offend. Anyway, Alex Steingraber, it's a pleasure having you on. Everyone, look out for Alex. Look out for Steingraber Performance Knives and check him out on Instagram. He's a great follow, and he's making awesome knives, doing cool stuff in the knife world. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Pleasure. So, I mean, it's that sort of generosity of spirit. Yeah, he'll tell you how he heat treats a steel. I love that, and I love that about the knife community, the knife world. Just a lot of excited excited people out there, happy to share their wisdom and knowledge about what they're doing. And not for nothing, I am gonna get on that next drop. You see, I have this problem with Instagram DM. I forget that it exists until I need to reach out to people. And then I'll go on and I'll see someone has reached out to me, like Alex. Hey, check it out. You know, shop's open. And I see it 12 hours later. And of course, I'm out of luck. Last to know. Well, that's my problem. Oh, we do have Josh. Josh, how you doing?
Hey, good, man. Sorry, I was having permissions issues. My phone was trying to block the StreamYard and everything, and I finally figured it out. So,
that's all right. Let's have a little reunion.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I was just gonna talk about belts a little bit, sheaths a little bit, and that kind of thing. So
yeah,
you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
I got a few. So speaking of belts, I got a few samples of these things are pretty cool. I'm just out here in my shop today working, but they form a slurry almost. They're like a they're a belt that they do not have at True Grit or anywhere else, but it is by VSM. It's pretty interesting. They've got it, you know, all the way up to like 600 grit or something like that. So it's not really a structured abrasive, but it leaves a real nice smooth finish. I'm still playing around with it, but yeah, so good.
You said it leaves a slurry. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I'm using it. They're wet. They're compatible with wet grinding or with water. So yeah, I got these, you know, I got actually quad misters on it on my grinder setup. So they just, you know, they work great with the water. So haven't had any issues with that so far. They do tend to cut to bow out towards you a little bit in the center, but you know, it's kind of the opposite. Normally what I use are those Cubitron 2, the 984Fs. They do good, but they tend to cut the opposite direction. So, but I like those VSM. They're a really great belt for. They do hold up really well, and they're real nice and sharp. They're very aggressive and everything. So yeah. But so go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No. I was just gonna ask Alex about sheaths, just some stuff that I'm looking at. But go ahead.
No, please ask him.
No, I'm curious, Alex. Have you ever messed around with doing like liners in your Kydex sheaths at all?
No, but I've heard about them, and actually, someone brought it up the other day. They said, "What do you do to, you know, mitigate any scratching on your knives when you put it in the sheath?" And I haven't looked into it, but I think it's something I'm going to look into when I get a vacuum press, because I'll have more, you know, versatility with that press versus trying to fiddle around and then get the thing on top and, you know. But I don't know. I do want to check it out just to kind of make everything nice and clean and not have scratches and stuff like that when the customer pulls everything out. So
yeah, because I noticed I made a small little fixed blade, and it had I was carrying it around. I call it the Ember, but it's only like 2.5-inch blade, but it was getting, you know, scratches on the tip and that kind of thing. So I'm just thinking of I'm thinking about doing. Have you ever been able to check out a Winkler Knives? One of their sheaths?
No, I haven't, but there's another company that does custom made sheaths. Forget the name. It starts with an A.
Okay.
But yeah, right now, like I just stick tape on the knife. I'll do 2 sheets of like painter's tape and then do it that way. Yep. It leaves a few thou of thickness. Right. In between, but I mean, other than that, I haven't really looked into anything else. But yeah, there's a lot of custom sheath makers that are out there that do a really good job and stuff. So I have looked into that as well. But
cool.
Well, Josh, I want to see if you want to come on the next town hall. I'll reach out to you, and I'd love to get some more shop talk, and you know, get in the weeds. Maybe get myself educated on some of these things. It's fun to hear you guys start. Oh, it's the XR4 Ti. Oh, cool. Yeah. I love the way that cuts. But that would be kind of fun to get some shop talk in there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Josh, I'm glad you were able to hop on with us. And again, Alex,
good seeing you guys.
We think the world of you. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
See you guys.
So long. So next up, we have a stalwart. I don't know, that word doesn't work well. We have a hot designer who's designed some of the knives that that you know very well. He designed back in the day when he was just a pup, the Koenig Arius, but he's also responsible for the CRKT Caligo. He's responsible for the Parascale and the Millet Torrent and the CRKT version of that. I can't remember what that's called. And this, one of the most impressive EDCs lately from CRKT, the Overland, which came to me through the Pass Around group, and I just will not. Took me a long time to make a video, and I think I'm just refusing to let it go. Thank you, EDC Tanto Knives. I appreciate that. I love this thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful knife. I have many opinions on how they could make a bunch of different versions of this, but anyway, that's my long way of saying thank you for welcoming T.J. Schwarz. T.J., it's a pleasure to have you, sir.
Hey, you as well. I really look forward to this. Really enjoyed our last podcast and jumped at it when you offered to have me on it.
Oh, awesome. Well, so we talked to a lot of different people on this show. Today we had
technical little difficulty. If you can give me just a quick second.
Yeah, sure. And I'll continue on while you work on that. I was going to say we talked to a number of different types of denizens of the knife world on this show. Someone like Ernest Emerson, who's done a lot to define kind of the modern folding knife, the stuff that we're all very into here and interested in. And then we have people like Alex, who comes on, who's Alex Steingraber, who is he really is figuring out blade steels, and he's figuring things out from a technical end that is impressive to me, because it's just not what my proclivities are. So you got people who approach things from the scientific, that kind of experimental end.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. And then we have people like TJ.
All right, now I can hear you. So I had Bluetooth headphones in, and guess what? I'm listening to you guys talk, and then as soon as you brought me on, suddenly the volume.
Yeah, well, that's of course that's what happens. That's how gremlins work. Well, I was just waxing poetic about how we have people who have knife companies. We have people who work like Alex, the last guest, who's just really heavily invested kind of in scientifically breaking down the process. And we talk to folks like you, designers, and you are really you're a prolific designer in the knife world. And as I was mentioning before, I don't know if you were getting set up, but just the Overland to me lately is just really strummed a chord. And I know that when we spoke on the podcast, I mentioned wanting to get this in hand, and I finally have. And I just really love it. So let's start off with your design philosophy, and then we'll start fielding questions. But like, what is it that drives you to design a knife, say, like this?
You know what? That knife is a knife that speaks to me a lot out of the ones that I've designed. And a lot of the people that know me know that I carry pretty much any knife. It doesn't have to be my design. So about half of my knife collection is stuff that is just some random thing that caught my eye. And so actually probably more often than not in the past, you would find me carrying a knife that I didn't design, but that particular knife, the Overland, it's really made its way into my pocket a lot recently. And it's like I said, it speaks to me as a person, and really what it comes down to is like its ability to function in so many ways in the outdoors. As you've mentioned before, when we talked about on the podcast, was its ability to cut on a flat surface, and also that negative blade angle. Some of the other things like a reverse pull cut and different things. I mean, it just has really proven to be such a successful design in my personal everyday use, and I hope it works out for other people that same way. And I appreciate your compliments on it.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's in every knife design, no matter how practical, which this is, and it's also quite beautiful, but that's a matter of taste. But no matter how practical a knife, I always look for an air of menace, because if there's no menace at all in a knife, it will not keep my interest for too long. And there is an air of menace to me in this. But I think we discussed this. It reminds me of I know that you are a student of history, especially World War II, and to me this looks like a piece of World War II kit. And I think we discussed the B-24 Liberator and what a great plane that was. And so how does your interest in history and in World War II work its way into things like this?
So, to be honest, I've studied World War II pretty much my whole life. It's like to the point of annoyance for some of the people around me, I think, I can always get into another World War II documentary or some kind of like historical based movie or something. And I've studied it so much, and for whatever reason, that particular war is the one that captured me. And I've as you've seen, the standard issue series that I brought around with that folding comb that I do was kind of that era in terms of its basis. And it just so happens that one of my favorite vehicles ever made is a Jeep Wrangler, and it has origins in that World War II era. And you'll be interested to hear that, I'll say it here, but it's not able to be used in the catalogs. But with the Overland, it's got the 7 slots from the 7-slot Jeep grill on the handle.
Oh,
and
no
then,
way.
Yeah, and then additionally, the original company that made the Jeep, and it obviously wasn't a Wrangler back then, was the Willys Overland Corporation. And then you've got the olive drab green there. So it's a kind of a little known fact. There's some kind of alluding to that if you read the marketing material, but for obvious reasons, we can't necessarily broadcast it. So yeah, that's an interesting little tidbit.
Just for anyone who needs this, those 7 slots right there on that handle scale are to be evocative of the grill of a Jeep.
That's correct.
That's very cool. I love that. And now I know why it reminds me of a B-24 is because there's one sitting north of it on the page. But still, it has that thing. And then to me, I'm a sucker for anodized orange anything. But put it with green, and I'm sold. So anyway, love this knife. But Jim was just going through some of your other designs. The Perpetua. What a cool and great knife. Yeah. Hey, what do you know? So what's your design philosophy? What's your overarching, like, maybe I just asked you this, but I don't feel like I understand what it is. Like, because your knives have a bunch of different looks to them. And I'm not necessarily going to be able to say that's a Schwarz, though. Maybe the more designs I see. So when you sit down to draw something out, what's your approach?
So form follows function. So first and foremost, the knife has to work. It's a tool. It's kind of repeating some of the things that the previous guest said. But in terms of using a knife, if something that makes it look good and make you want to click on it on the internet makes it uncomfortable in your hand or not function well, that's going to be a problem for me. So that's just kind of the bare bones basis of everything that I do. And then in addition to that, as you've said, I like to explore every kind of angle that you can approach knife design. I don't like to be trapped in any way, and that includes being overly innovative or under innovative, as some people would say, and describe that spectrum. You know what I mean? In terms of being very, very comfortable and normal, and being very, very out there and far reaching. I think that's entering the industry. That's kind of how I wanted to build my brand, was that, a new knife's coming from this guy. We actually don't have a single clue what it could look like. You know what I mean? Like, I like to keep that going, and I hope that's what I can sustain,
Yeah. That being said, you sent me this is one of the benefits of having a podcast where I talk to interesting knife makers. You sent me a text shortly after we spoke of a design that you're working on, and it's beautiful. I'm not sure if it's ready for the presses or what, but how many new things do you have in the works? How do you approach, it for this town hall? I was thinking, well, we're nearing the end of the year. What do knife makers, what are they thinking about for next year? And how does that work? How does your cycle work?
So because of how long it takes manufacturing to catch up in terms of after I design a product, license it to a company, and then it could be 2 years or so before it actually hits shelves. So when we talk about next year, from a designer standpoint, next year has been set in stone for about a year already. So I'm thinking, my mind is on 2022 right now from a design standpoint for manufacturing. So the 2022 catalogs is what I'm currently working on. But the knives that are coming out here in a couple of months, I think people are going to be excited about. And I have 2 knives that'll be coming out in January and maybe late December that, again, I think are going to be, they're not going to look like something people have seen before from me, and maybe something they haven't ever seen before. They're really stabs out into the dark. So I think people will be excited to see those.
Oh, I like that. Stabs out into the dark. I can't help but feel there's a clue there.
That's right. So I wanted to sidetrack for just a second. So people might be wondering, like, why the heck am I standing in front of a wall of insulation? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
I got an email like, pick a really nice, well-lit backdrop and stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm standing in front of a wall of insulation. Well, the reason for that is I tore the sheetrock off this wall. I'm in my shop out here because I need to run an extra power source, a 220 volt outlet and whatnot, because I've got a CNC that's getting delivered. And it's going to sit right here in about a week. So first time I've really announced it, but it's going to pivot things in the way that I'm offering products, and I believe that a lot more of my stuff is going to be available direct made for me, which is kind of the next generation of my career. Obviously, the design stuff is how I made my name, and it's what I'm going to continue to do. But
Yeah,
this is just another chapter. So.
Wow! Congratulations. That's awesome. I mean, well, that gives you that. You know, that's a whole entire new world. I mean, that opens up everything for you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just thinking of your, you know, your 1942 line, how, you know, to take the production of that, bring it in house, and knives and everything else. But I mean, that's exciting. I mean, it puts a lot more control in your hands.
Yep, for sure. No, yeah, 100%. And actually, the 1942 series has been in house since the inception, which is awesome. But this is going to change the way that I design in that space as well. So the 1942 series, I think, will be expanded as well. So there's a lot of things coming, I think, and it's not immediate because when it comes to buying machinery and getting things set up, as you can see, it's a process. But I'm scrambling to get everything together, and then I've got a lot of learning to do. It's going to be a big learning curve, but I've been trying to prepare as much as possible.
So you're one of the few guests we've had that works with really large outfits. Hang on. Stasa says, I love the town hall meeting. It's so awesome to actually see and hear from my favorite makers. My birthday is in January, so the design would be a great gift. See that? Nick's asking. Nick's,
yeah, and I've seen your videos. I appreciate the videos. I've seen your reviews of some of the stuff I've designed, so thank you.
Yeah, Stasa 23. He's awesome. Where was I going? I was saying you're one of the few designers that works with, you know, one of the biggest outfits in the game, and CRKT and others. But so you're enlightening me a little bit as to production schedules. I mean, it makes sense, of course, that all these things would be ready the year before so that actual production can happen in a timely way. But I don't think like that, or it didn't really occur to me. And so now talking, it's like all of these knife trends that have been that seem so on point. Oh, now everyone's carrying a Warncliffe, or now, you know, bearings are the thing, or now front flipper. These are all innovations that were happening maybe 3-4 years ago before they actually get to the presses.
Correct. Yep. And the other thing is, I've noticed, I mean, with some of the big brands, like working with CRKT, I mean, CRKT is sort of a platform for expanding the knife community's interests across just the everyman, the general public. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people don't know, you know, if you're walking to Cabela's, they don't know what's hot, what's new, what's trending in the knife scene. So even if, for example, like if a trend hits some of these big brands, maybe 2 years late, according to the viewers that are standing from the standpoint of being a knife collector and knowing everything that's going on, mm-hmm. Well, the people that walk into Cabela's, like, that is new to them. And that's, you know what I mean? So you have a little bit of a duality there. And there's different groups of people that see the industry in different ways. And so that's another factor to consider.
Yeah, right. Of course. And a giant company like CRKT that moves so many units, so to speak, you know, they're not necessarily catering primarily to knife people. They're catering to people who need knives. And the thing I've always loved about CRKT is that through their expansive line, they expose people to so many different designers, and and offer so many different what's the term? Not vibe, but so many different types of knives that people might be interested in. Everything from your knife to the Fossil to the, you know, they've done G&G Hawks in the past. They've just all sorts of, you know, so that's what I love about them. And then I see this knife, the Overland, and I think, wow, this one deserves the treatment. You know, they recently came out with the Shock, and that was a proof of concept thing when they first came out with the deadbolt lock, and they were using titanium and a high-end steel, and that was kind of like, we want to show that we can do this. Here it is for $750. It's like that. In my opinion, they like way overshot. Like I think $400 would have been like, oh, that's about the price of a Sebenza. And look at these things. And damn it, I always knew it because CRKT, their design is outrageous.
Right.
So I feel like this deserves the Shock treatment, not in the deadbolt, but in the upgraded materials, because this is that good. And you keep it thin like this and light like this. I mean, this is a steel frame lock folder, and it's light.
I can tell you
unusual.
A D2 variation is actually coming of that guy. So that's kind of an intermediate step to what you're talking about. So keep an eye out for that.
Okay, cool. And it's not just the materials, because I'm less of a material snob than I am a size snob. I'd also love to see this in a 4-inch blade.
Yeah, no, that would be sweet. Yeah, I've definitely pondered that. So I'll have to see what happens.
Okay, so obviously I'm obsessing over the Overland. What of your designs, what is your what's your favorite? What are you the most proud of?
The Overland's up there. I mean, the Overland currently, in terms of what I'm putting in my pocket, that's probably it. But in terms of major career pivots that occurred and what knife was associated with that, I still look back to the dovetail construction on the Zaneta, and it was just a flashpoint for my career, you know.
Yeah.
And so I can't like overstate what I feel when I look at that knife, you know what I mean? Like it brings back some serious like emotion about what happened around that knife and stuff. And so it's something that is always going to be, you know, something I'll remember, and I really enjoy carrying it. I got one in my pocket actually.
Well, actually,
I got a lot of pockets.
I want you to show it and describe it. I want you to show it up close and describe what's unique about it. But before you do, I just want to say that someone just commented, I can't remember who did, but that the action on his, presumably he's a he, Overland is butter smooth. BBP is Benny. Yeah, is really smooth. And I forgot to mention it on this, and I just made a video of this in which I forgot to mention it. Yeah, just super smooth and on Teflon. And I don't know what people's thing is with Teflon, but I love it. Some of my smoothest knives are on Teflon.
No, I prefer
Teflon
in certain circumstances. I do. And so here's the Zaneta you mentioned. It's actually a little dirty. This is the first one ever assembled, all time. Doesn't have a pocket clip because we were still developing that at the time, and so this just ended up in my pocket without a pocket clip. It's got a dovetail backspacer that's actually, it's not monolithic in the classical sense, but the dovetails are monolithic with their respective handle slabs, so that it's basically two pieces that each contain dovetail mechanisms that rotate together. So essentially, this thing actually doesn't have a single screw of any kind on it. No adhesive, no glue, nothing. It's kind of like how you'd see some wooden architecture with beams, you know, that have the way they interlock and stuff. That's a little bit of the inspiration, was some carpentry stuff. So
show the spine of that knife, but put it really close up to your camera. So I mean, like, keep coming. Yeah. Look at that. So we talked about this when we recorded the podcast, but all I had were still pictures to go on. Who made that? So
this knife is a Koenig knife. So you're familiar with Koenig knives, right?
Yes,
obviously, yeah. Koenig knife. So I was working with Bill at the time with Koenig knives, and so I designed this. And so basically, it was manufactured and produced by Koenig knives at the time with help from Millet knives. So Millet was assisting in like from the machining aspect, and then Koenig assembly and finishing and production and stuff. So
that knife was a real test or proof of concept for you and for Koenig in terms of capability, what you could turn out, whether your design would actually work in the real world.
Exactly.
Well, so I alluded to it earlier, but you sent me the picture of that knife. What's the deal with that? Now, this was a rendering from some design you had been working on, and I'm sure you work on a lot of different designs at once, and I'm not even sure if you remember which one you sent me. But
I do. Yeah.
Okay. What's the story with that one's progress with that?
So again, we're looking, because that one's sitting in CAD right now. We are looking at like 18 months plus, probably 2 years. Probably right at 2 years before that's in the public. I'm going to have to pick and choose now that I'm going to have some production capabilities in my own shop, which designs people are going to see much sooner as a customer or semi-customer or whatever terminology you want to use. But that particular design, it may not be seen, like I said, for 2 years, but I like the people that I trust that have opinions in the knife industry and that I know are going to be looking at this knife in the future. And I'd love to know what they think before 2 years goes by. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
So I send it out to a few people, and I appreciate your input on it. And yeah, it's going to be a little while, but we'll keep people in a bated breath.
Yeah. Well, I think the design you sent me was really handsome and you know, had a little bit of that menace to it, but also it looks like it's going to be, you know, just an awesome, you know, user EDC style knife. I have a question, and maybe this is a private one, but your relationship with CRKT, are you on retainer? Do you or do they just love your designs? You just kind of make them and shop them to them? How does your relationship with a company like CRKT work?
So a little view inside is that there's basically no agreement on paper for like any given length, any given contract. I'm not necessarily avowed to being exclusive with them or anything like that. Basically, on a design by design basis, I pitch designs in the same way that anyone would, and then basically we've gotten to a position where my designs have been successful enough where I have good success with them accepting the designs that I pitch, right? But even the designers that already work with them, like it's still a pitch, and a lot of the times I've had good luck with them picking them up, you know. So, but that's still the way that it works. And the nice thing though is that we've developed a relationship where in that price point, in that market, I have opted to be exclusive to designing for them, you know. And it's made for a strong relationship in terms of our marketing materials being merged, you know. It's very clean. Like I prefer that kind of exclusivity at a given price bracket. And so that's really just like a designer by designer stance, you know. Different guys will do different things, but that's just the way I approach it. That's interesting.
I've never thought about that, but that's a really interesting quandary for a designer, because there are some CRKTs, and let me put it to you this way: a legend like Ken Onion, for instance, he's got a knife with a lot of different people. You know, he's got at least a knife with a number of different huge manufacturers, and oftentimes I forget who's who, or I'll assume that it's a Kershaw, and lo and behold, it's a CRKT or something else. So I could see how a designer such as yourself, who has a brand to not only build but to protect, might want to keep yourself exclusive within a price bracket, and then say you enter the $250 price. Well, you might want to be with ZT, for instance, and stay exclusive with them. And that's an interesting. So, are you ever surprised by the designs that you pitch to CRKT that they're not interested in?
I've had good luck, and that hasn't happened yet. But
look at you, man.
I've had good luck, but it's like I said, it's been born out of a strong relationship where a lot of the designs are a conversation we might have in person. You know, I try to make sure that I'm at a trade show and I'm showing them this stuff and what my feelings are on it and why I think this is a good option for the company and stuff. And so I've had good luck with that. But like I said, I wouldn't be offended, and I would be totally prepared for them to not be interested in any given design, you know. But
they're like, TJ, what's happened to you, man? You used to design beautiful knives. What's this?
Right.
That's not going to happen, obviously. So you're an outdoorsman yourself, and you use these knives. You use your knives, and you use knives on a regular basis. I am much more of a collector, and I look for any excuse to use my knives. When you have an itch to scratch, a design itch to scratch, where does it come from? Is it usually you're out, you're hunting, you're camping, you're doing something, you're like, this knife is just, if only it had this curve, or if only it had this quality? Is that the kind of way you're inspired to do something new? Or do you have a regular schedule like a writer and just sit down and design and see what comes out?
So and this is the struggle. I mean, you've heard the metaphor of the muse, trying to capture that little creative spark and stuff. And it's always a process, it's always difficult, and it does change. That process changes. But I can say the way I'm wired is I'm a bit of a busybody. So if there's something I can put my hands on and do, I'm going to be doing it. I'm not good at sitting still. Mm-hmm. And I found that some of the best thoughts that I've had have been in moments where I was forced to be still. So for example, the design that's coming out in January, I'll give a little clue. So people will ask, is it a fixed blade or a folder? It's neither, okay? Nor is it an OTF. It's a category I don't think that has ever existed in terms of what is it, in terms of the category. So it'll be interesting to see retailers, how they categorize it. But that design came to me while I was sitting on an airplane, which you're just stuck looking out the window. Mm-hmm. You have no access to internet, email, nothing. And that's where, and I remember landing at a terminal at a layover, and I called my dad, and he's always kind of a backdrop for me to talk at with my new ideas and stuff. And I was like, in between flights, like, I just thought of this idea, what do you think about this? And so there's different ideas that come in, and it seems looking back that it is when I'm like forced to be idle. Yeah. And so maybe a project for me in the coming future is to like self-impose some forced idle moments, you know what I mean? Which is something I'm just not great at.
Well, maybe that could be some sort of combined with the outdoors meditational kind of thing. Yeah. So now you're talking about something that's coming out in January. That's an innovation, because it's you don't even know how to categorize it. So is this something that you are producing, or this is something that someone else is producing? I missed that part.
It is with CRKT.
It is with CRKT. Okay.
But it's, given that this is arriving, this machine, like there's no reason I couldn't also make it here. So that's always a possibility.
Okay. So has CRKT, have you discussed with them at all how they're going to market it and what they're going to call it and how they're going to categorize it?
So the catalogs have been printed. So right now, like, there's a warehouse in the back of CRKT's facility where they probably got boxes full of catalogs, and it's in that catalog, So cool. It's, I mean, they will have stuff finished and like ready, just sitting there, like locked and loaded sometime before the launch, because with a machine like that, as big a corporation as they are, to have everything in like a cycle is really helpful to them. And so a yearly calendar is how they operate. And so they're wanting all their designs and all their materials ready as early as possible, but it's still this revolving calendar year. You know what I mean? So we've got everything locked and loaded right now.
So in this innovative design, did it require CRKT to step out of their comfort zone and adopt or create new production processes?
Honestly, it's, of the designs I've given to them, it's probably to date the easiest one to make.
Oh,
so yeah. So
interesting. Well, I am on tenterhooks now, man. I have no idea what this thing could be. I can't wait to see it. Does it have a sharp edge on it?
Sure does.
All right.
It is a knife.
That would be disappointing if it is a knife. It is a knife. All right. So anything on the horizon in the upcoming year in terms of so we know you're creating your own production. You're going to have your own limited production. You've discussed a couple of your upcoming knives. Anything else in the offing we should know about in the world of T.J. Schwarz?
Well, I think one of the things that's happened to me in recent years is that early in my career, I wanted to get as much attention as possible on what I was trying to do. And so what I was doing was drawing knives, modeling knives, posting about it on Instagram every day, showing off, this is what I'm doing. Here's a 3D print. What do you think? Oh, it was like an organic process where I was like interacting directly. And I love that. But I got burned about 3 times in a row where I would see a design on Amazon that was just like they had followed what I was doing and they could beat it to market. You know what I mean? Wow. And so I can go on Amazon and find 4 or 5 knives at any given time that are identical. And if they're beating us to market, that's a problem. You know what I mean? So basically, I've had to retract all of that content. And so I feel like it's left my media presence like a little bit devoid, and it kind of like breaks my heart. And so one of the main reasons in actually having the machine and having like establishing like a more robust production facility here is that I feel like I can express myself a little bit better from a knife industry and media presence standpoint, because I don't have to worry about it as much, because you always see these guys talking about fixturing and making knives and all this stuff. And when you're making a more expensive product in your own facility and someone knocks it off, it's not of concern. I'm not worried about that. But if I'm going to make a design for, say, CRKT, and the end goal is to sell it for $38 and it comes out on Amazon for $30, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So that's where I really look forward to being able to express myself more publicly with what I'm actually doing at any given time. And so people might like to hear that they can tune in and they can see more of what I'm doing in the future. So that's a huge turning point that I think is going to happen with having my production in-house.
It's immediate too. It's like the difference between being a film director and waiting a year and a half to see your movie, or being a musician and sitting down right now and playing it and hearing it. I mean, you're going to have the ability to get these designs out, not to mention the fact that not only can you bring people into the production of how you're making these things and bring that media aspect back to it, but you can start showing off your designs again, because you can put it into physical form immediately. Yep. In a sense, if it's still a thing for you to, if it's still an interesting thing for you to show off designs, but I could see what you mean. You're not just some dude scrawling designs on a napkin. You're a world-class knife designer with serious chops on CAD, and you get some unscrupulous guy who's got a milling machine taking a look at that file. Hey, Johnny, you think you can recreate that design? Sure. You get some 12-year-old kid to recreate it in CAD.
Yep.
That's awful. That's awful. Yeah. And it seems to me like if you're going to be a scumbag and scam people, there are so many more lucrative ways to do it than to rip off a knife designer.
Yeah. It's something. Yeah, it's something I've struggled with a lot. Is just I'm just by nature like an outward person. I want to express myself artistically, but my career is taking a turn into the darkness. Unless it's printed in a catalog and we're ready to roll. But again, if it's been 2 years since I actually had my mind and energy applied to that design, and then it launches, it's like, how do I make a media presence now when all of the struggle and thought process behind it and all of these moments where I wasn't sure which direction to go with it, all of that's 2 years in the rearview mirror, So there's a finished product and I'm like, well, what do you want me to say about it? It's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just been a little bit hard. I love the process of what I'm doing right now, but that is the one aspect of it that I'm looking to ramp up with doing it in-house.
Yeah, you get some immediacy, and I think that is necessary for any sort of expression, Yeah. Well, TJ, man, it's been a pleasure to have you back on the show, and I love when I get a chance to have a repeat customer, such as actually everyone on the town halls I've spoken to at one time or another, and it's always nice to reconnect. And I don't know, I get a lot of reflected glory from talking to you guys because you're all doing these amazing things and creating these objects that we are fascinated with and obsess over and collect. And not for nothing, you also make a damn good tool. So thanks for coming on the show, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And remember, we are always here for you to show off new designs. I know I'm a bit greedy with it, but whenever you want to express yourself to the world, before you get that CNC, come back on our show.
Fantastic.
TJ Schwarz, great to have you, sir.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Thank you, sir. You too. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this town hall, this Knife Junkie town hall. Like I was just saying to TJ, it's really enriching for me to establish a relationship with these people and have them back on and talk to them and go deeper into the conversations we initially establish, and bring them to you and give you the opportunity to talk to people. I wanted to mention that Lance Abernathy was originally scheduled to be on this show. Lance Abernathy of Sniper Blade Works, the much coveted custom knives, which are now back in production form. He was on the show recently. He was going to be on this show. He had a bit of a work emergency and had to bail. But we all understand work, and it's one of those necessary evils that allow us to afford these things. So Lance, we miss you. He's a great guy and a great conversationalist. So we'll get him on the next one for sure. Thank you, Benny. Benny loved it. I appreciate it. I really, really like these town halls, and I'm glad other people like them too. Hope they don't seem too self-indulgent. Oh, here's Bob again talking to these knife makers. But anyway, there you have it. Thanks for joining us. Anything else to mention? No, I think we'll do another one of these town halls in probably about 3 months, and we'll see who we can get back on. All right. Well, for Jim, who tirelessly is working behind the switcher, doing his awesome work and making everything here look and sound great, I want to thank you, sir. As always, couldn't do it without you. And to all you out there, viewers and listeners who dig this show, I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. It's my pleasure. So with that being said, be sure that you do not take dull for an answer.